Welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be exploring shaping and maintaining operant behavior
Ooh.
in applied behavior analysis, or ABA for short.
Okay.
And basically, we'll be trying to simplify this idea,
Yeah.
how behaviors are learned and how they stick around.
Right.
And we'll be pulling insights from the chapter, Shaping and Maintaining Operant Behavior,
Okay.
from the book Science and Human Behavior.
Excellent.
So think of it kind of like sculpting, but with actions instead of clay,
I like that.
So we're not talking about making a sculpture.
Yeah.
We're talking about how our actions are shaped.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
We don't often think about the
Right.
complexity of everyday behaviors.
Right.
Like a child learning to walk or a musician playing an instrument.
Right.
But they don't just happen. They're built through a process
Yeah.
called operant conditioning, where consequences shape our actions.
Consequences shape our actions. That makes me think about learning to ride a bike.
Okay.
Yeah. You don't just hop on and take off.
Right.
There are all those wobbly steps and near falls.
For sure.
Before you get the hang of it.
Exactly. And each of those small steps, those wobbles, are shaped by the consequences. The feeling of falling might make you more careful,
Right.
while the success of staying upright for a few seconds encourages you to keep trying.
So it's not about expecting perfection right away.
Right.
It's about recognizing and reinforcing those small steps
Exactly.
toward a larger goal.
Yes.
And the book actually gives a fascinating example of this with pigeons.
Right. The classic pigeon experiment,
Yeah.
where they were taught to peck a specific spot.
Right.
The researchers didn't start by expecting the pigeon to peck the spot perfectly.
All right.
They reinforced any movement towards the spot,
Okay.
then closer movements, then head lifts, and finally the peck itself.
It's amazing how you can build a complex behavior from scratch just by breaking it down into smaller, manageable steps.
Totally.
That reminds me of how I finally learned to play that tricky guitar riff.
Yeah.
I had to break it down into sections
Yeah.
and practice each part slowly before putting it all together.
And that feeling of satisfaction when you finally nail it,
Oh, yeah.
that's your brain's way of saying,
Yeah.
yes, do that again.
Mm-hmm.
That's reinforcement in action, encouraging you to repeat the behavior. It's the same principle at work,
Right.
whether you're teaching a pigeon learning a guitar riff or helping a child learn to tie their shoes.
So it's happening all around us all the time.
All the time.
But it's not just about building new behaviors. It's also about refining them, right?
Right.
The book talks about differential reinforcement,
Yes.
which sounds like being super specific about what you reinforce.
Think of it like this. You've got the basic shape of your sculpture,
Okay.
but now you want to refine the details.
Yeah.
Differential reinforcement is like using a finer tool. Shape those details. Imagine you're teaching someone to throw a ball.
Right.
You wouldn't just praise any throw.
Yeah.
You'd provide specific feedback on their grip stance and release point,
Okay.
reinforcing those elements that lead to a more accurate throw.
That makes me think about those cooking shows
Okay.
where the judges critique every element of a dish.
Right.
From the texture to the presentation.
Totally.
It's not just about whether the food is edible.
Right.
It's about refining those details
Yeah.
to create something truly exceptional.
And just like a chef thrives on that feedback, we all benefit from those clear, specific reinforcements.
Right.
They help us understand what we're doing well and what we can improve.
Makes sense.
Think about the feeling of a perfectly timed golf swing.
Oh, yeah.
Before you even see where the ball lands.
Right.
That feeling is immediate feedback, a form of reinforcement that tells you you've done something right.
So it's not just about knowing how to do something. It's about doing it well.
It is.
And being able to recognize those subtle improvements along the way.
Absolutely.
This makes me wonder if we can use this idea of differential reinforcement to improve our own skills.
Totally.
Or even help others learn more effectively.
Absolutely. Being mindful of this process can make a big difference.
Okay.
Whether you're learning a new language, mastering a recipe, or teaching your dog a new trick.
Right.
Paying attention to those small details and providing specific feedback can significantly enhance the learning process.
Okay, so we've covered how behaviors are built and refined.
Right.
But what about keeping them going? It can be tough to stick to new habits.
Yeah.
Or maintain skills over time.
Right.
How do we ensure those desired behaviors don't just fade away?
That's where the concept of maintenance comes in.
Okay.
It's like tending a garden you've worked hard to cultivate. You wouldn't just plant the seeds and walk away, right?
Yeah.
You need to water, weed, and nurture those plants to ensure they continue to thrive.
So we need to find ways to keep those desired behaviors watered.
Exactly.
So they don't wilt under pressure or neglect.
I like that analogy.
I'm curious, though.
Yeah.
What happens when those watering efforts stop? The book mentions something called extinction, which sounds a bit ominous.
Well, extinction is a fundamental concept in behavior analysis.
Okay.
It essentially means that a behavior decreases when it's no longer reinforced.
Okay.
Think of a child who throws tantrums to get attention.
Right.
If the parent consistently ignores those tantrums,
the
behavior is likely to decrease over time.
Okay.
Because it's no longer serving its function.
Makes sense.
It's like a vending machine that stops dispensing snacks.
Right.
Eventually, you're going to start putting money in.
That's a helpful way to think about it.
Yeah.
So the behavior goes extinct because it's no longer paying off with the desired consequence.
Exactly.
This makes me think about
Yeah.
how we analyze why people do the things they do.
Exactly. Understanding extinction forces us to look beyond the behavior itself and examine the environmental factors, those consequences that are driving it.
Right.
It's like being a detective searching for clues.
Okay.
We have to ask, what's reinforcing this behavior?
Right.
And what happens if those reinforcers are removed?
Okay. I'm starting to see how this all connects. We've got shaping, refining, and now maintaining behavior.
Right.
But there's one more concept from the book
that
I'm particularly intrigued by.
Okay, what's that?
Intermittent reinforcement.
Ooh.
This idea that not every behavior is reinforced every time.
Right.
And surprisingly, this can make it even stronger.
It seems counterintuitive.
It does.
But think about slot machines.
Okay.
Why are people so drawn to them, even though they rarely win big?
That is a good question.
It's the allure of that potential jackpot. The unpredictability of the reward that keeps them coming back for more.
That's a great example. It's like a siren song.
Yeah.
That allure of the maybe keeps us hooked.
Totally.
Even when we know the odds are stacked against us.
Yeah, and that's the power of intermittent reinforcement.
Okay.
Because those reinforcements are unpredictable, they create a powerful drive to keep engaging in the behavior.
Wow.
It's the same principle that underlies a lot of addictive behaviors.
Okay.
Whether it's gambling, social media, or even certain unhealthy relationship patterns.
Wow. That's a little unsettling to think about.
It is.
But it also makes sense.
It does.
So how exactly does this intermittent reinforcement work?
Okay, good question.
The book mentions different types of schedules.
Yes.
Can you break those down for us?
Of course, there are 4 main types.
Okay.
Fixed interval, variable interval, fixed ratio, and variable ratio.
Gotcha.
So let's start with fixed interval.
Okay.
This means that reinforcement is delivered after a set amount of time.
Okay. I can see that. Think about getting paid every 2 weeks.
Exactly.
That's a fixed interval schedule.
It is.
You know exactly when that paycheck is coming.
Right now, with a variable interval schedule, reinforcement is delivered after an average amount of time. But the exact timing varies.
Okay.
Think of checking your email.
Yeah.
You don't know exactly when a new message will arrive.
Right.
But the possibility keeps you checking periodically.
So that explains why I keep hitting refresh.
I know, right?
Even when I know it's probably not going to change anything. It's like that anticipation of the maybe keeps me hooked.
Right.
Now let's move on to fixed ratio schedules.
Okay.
Here, reinforcement is delivered after a set number of responses.
Exactly.
Imagine a factory worker getting paid for every 10 widgets they produce. They know exactly how much effort they need to put in to receive that reward.
Exactly. Now, with a variable ratio schedule, reinforcement comes after an average number of responses, but the exact number varies.
That's our slot machine example, right?
It is.
You never know how many pulls it'll take.
Exactly.
Get that jackpot.
And that unpredictability is what makes it so compelling.
Right.
It's like a treasure hunt where you don't know when you'll strike gold. This variability keeps you engaged and motivated to keep going.
So it's like a hidden code governing so much of what we do.
It is.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
But a bit scary at the same time.
It can be.
You know, all of this brings me to another question.
Okay.
Are there any downsides to using these powerful reinforcement schedules?
That's a great question, and it's something that we need to be mindful of, especially as ABA professionals.
Right.
While these schedules can be incredibly effective for shaping and maintaining behavior, they also come with certain challenges and ethical considerations.
I'm really curious to explore those challenges further.
Okay, yeah. As we just discussed,
Yeah.
these powerful reinforcement schedules
Great.
aren't without their challenges.
You mentioned the potential for burnout when working with challenging behaviors.
Yes.
Especially those driven by intermittent reinforcement.
Right.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Absolutely.
I imagine it can be pretty draining for ABA professionals.
It absolutely can be.
Right.
Think about a therapist working with a child who displays aggressive behavior to get access to a favorite toy.
Okay.
The therapist might face repeated instances of that aggression,
Yeah.
which can take a toll both physically and emotionally.
That makes sense.
You know?
So it's not just about understanding the theory.
Right.
It's about being prepared for the realities
Yeah.
of working with these behaviors and
Exactly.
taking steps to prevent burnout.
Yeah.
What are some strategies that ABA professionals can use to protect themselves?
Self-care is crucial.
Okay.
Making time for activities that recharge and de-stress is essential.
Right.
Whether it's exercise, meditation, spending time with loved ones, or pursuing hobbies,
Right.
finding those outlets is vital.
It's like putting on your own oxygen mask first before assisting others.
Exactly.
You can't pour from an empty cup.
You cannot.
And it's not just about individual self-care.
Right.
Supervision and support networks play a vital role too.
They do.
Having colleagues and mentors
Yeah.
to discuss cases, share experiences, and offer guidance
Right.
can provide invaluable support and prevent feelings of isolation.
For sure.
So it's about recognizing that this work can be challenging
Yes.
and building in those supports
Exactly.
to navigate the tough times.
Yep.
You also mentioned ethical considerations.
Yes.
When using these reinforcement schedules,
Uh-huh.
what are some of the red flags that ABA professionals should be aware of?
One key consideration is ensuring that we're not unintentionally reinforcing problematic behaviors.
Okay.
For instance, if we're working with a student who engages in disruptive behavior to escape a difficult task,
Right.
consistently removing that task might inadvertently reinforce the disruptive behavior,
Okay.
even if it provides temporary relief.
I see. So it's about taking a long-term perspective
Yes,
and considering the potential consequences of our actions.
exactly.
It's not just about stopping the behavior in the moment,
Right.
but understanding the function
Yes.
and finding ways to address the underlying need
Right.
in a more appropriate way.
Precisely.
We need to be thoughtful about how we use reinforcement
Yes.
and make sure we're not inadvertently creating dependencies
Right.
or making the problem worse in the long run.
Yeah.
Data collection and ongoing evaluation
Uh-huh.
are essential to ensure that our interventions are truly effective and ethical.
I agree.
It sounds like a constant process
It is.
of reflection and adjustment,
Yeah.
making sure that you're staying true to the principles of ABA
Right.
and prioritizing the well-being of the individuals you're working with.
Absolutely.
You know, one thing that struck me as we were discussing intermittent reinforcement
Yeah.
is how often we're probably subject to those same schedules in our own lives without even realizing it.
Right. We're all subject to the laws of learning,
Right.
even if we're not consciously aware of them.
Yeah.
Think about checking social media.
Oh, yeah.
That refresh behavior is often reinforced on a variable ratio schedule. We don't know when we'll see a new post or notification,
Right.
but the possibility keeps us coming back for more.
I can definitely relate to that.
I know, right?
It's like my own personal slot machine in my pocket.
Exactly.
Those little bursts of dopamine from those notifications can be incredibly addictive.
They can't.
And understanding these schedules
Yeah.
can help us gain insights into our own habits and behaviors.
Totally. It's like having a new lens
Right.
through which to view our actions and motivations.
Okay.
Why do I keep checking my phone? What's the function of that behavior?
Yeah.
What's reinforcing it?
It's like we're becoming our own behavior analysts.
We are.
Which brings me back to one of the goals of this podcast,
Okay.
to make these ABA concepts engaging and easy to understand
Yeah.
for everyone, not just professionals.
Right.
By connecting these principles to real-life examples, we're starting to see how relevant they are in our own lives.
I couldn't agree more.
Speaking of powerful tools,
Yeah.
the book really emphasizes understanding the function of behavior.
It does.
Why is that so crucial in ABA?
It's absolutely fundamental.
Okay.
It's about asking, what purpose is this behavior serving?
Right.
Is it to get attention, escape a task, gain access to something desirable, or to provide sensory stimulation?
Okay.
Once we understand the function, we can design interventions that address the underlying need driving the behavior.
It's like figuring out the why behind the what. We need to look beyond the surface and understand the motivation behind the action.
Precisely, without understanding why, our interventions are likely to be ineffective.
Right.
It's like trying to fix a leaky faucet without knowing where the leak is coming from.
That's a great analogy.
So,
instead of just trying to suppress the behavior,
right,
we need to figure out what need it's fulfilling and provide alternative, more appropriate ways to meet that need.
That's the heart of ABA.
Okay.
It's about teaching new skills, providing appropriate reinforcement, and creating environments that support positive behavior change.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
Function reinforcement schedules, ethical considerations. It's a lot to take in.
It is.
But I'm sensing a theme emerging.
Okay.
A theme of careful observation.
Yes.
Analysis and understanding. It's not about applying cookie-cutter solutions.
Right.
It's about taking a nuanced and individualized approach to each situation.
That's a brilliant observation.
ABA is not a one-size-fits-all approach.
It is not.
It requires deep understanding of the principles of behavior and the ability to apply them flexibly and creatively to meet the unique needs of each individual.
Exactly. And that's what makes this field so challenging and rewarding. It's about using our knowledge and skills to help individuals reach their full potential and live fulfilling lives.
I love that. And it's a great reminder that the concepts we're discussing today aren't just about pigeons pecking spots or children having tantrums. They're about the very essence of human behavior.
They are.
Motivation, learning, growth, and the incredible capacity for change.
Beautifully put.
And I think that's a perfect segue into our final segment.
We've covered a lot of ground, from those tiny steps in learning to the complex world of reinforcement schedules.
We have.
And we've explored some of the challenges and ethical considerations that ABA professionals face when applying these principles. But now let's shift our focus to you, the listener.
Okay.
How can we take these concepts and use them in our own lives?
Right.
Even if we're not working in the field of ABA.
Exactly.
Because let's face it, we all have behaviors we'd like to change or improve, right?
Absolutely. And one of the most empowering takeaways from our discussion is that we're not just passive recipients of our environment. We have the power to shape our own behaviors.
Right.
And even influence the behaviors of others.
Through the principles we've been exploring.
So it's about taking back the reins.
Yes.
Understanding the forces that are shaping our actions.
Right.
And making conscious choices about how we respond.
I like that.
Where do we start?
It all begins with observation.
Okay.
Pay attention to the behaviors you want to change in yourself or in those around you.
Right.
Think about those antecedents, the events or situations that trigger the behavior and the consequences that follow.
So it's like putting on our detective hats.
Exactly.
And doing a little behavioral analysis.
Yes.
We need to identify the clues, those triggers and reinforcers that are driving the behavior.
Yeah. Do you have any tips for making this process easier?
One helpful strategy is to keep a journal or log of the behavior you're targeting.
Right.
Write down when it happens, what happens before, and what happens afterward.
Yes. This can help you identify patterns and pinpoint those key antecedents and consequences.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
It's like creating a roadmap of the behavior.
Exactly.
So you can see where the potential detours or roadblocks are.
I like that.
Once you've identified those triggers and reinforcers, what's the next step?
Then you can start experimenting with ways to modify those antecedents or consequences to bring about change. Let's say you want to reduce the amount of time you spend scrolling through social media. You might start by identifying those triggers.
Right.
Is it boredom, stress, loneliness? Then you could try modifying those situations by finding alternative activities to engage in when those feelings arise, like taking a walk, reading a book, or connecting with a friend.
So it's about being proactive and finding healthy substitutes for those less desirable behaviors.
Yes. But what about the consequences?
Right.
How can we use reinforcement to support positive behavior change?
One powerful strategy is to use positive reinforcement.
Okay.
To reward yourself for engaging in the desired behavior.
Right.
Instead of mindlessly scrolling through your phone, you might set a goal to read for 30 minutes and then reward yourself with a cup of tea.
Okay.
Or relaxing activity.
It's like creating our own little reward system. Using those principles of reinforcement to our advantage.
And it doesn't have to be complicated.
Right.
It can be as simple as acknowledging our progress.
Yeah.
And celebrating those small wins along the way.
Absolutely. And remember the power of differential reinforcement.
Right.
Be specific about what aspects of the behavior you're reinforcing.
Okay.
Instead of just saying, good job.
Yeah.
Try to pinpoint the specific actions that led to the desired outcome.
Right.
That targeted feedback can be incredibly motivating.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive.
It has.
It feels like we've gained a whole new set of tools for understanding behavior, our own and others.
For sure.
It's like having X-ray vision for motivation.
I couldn't agree more. And the beauty of these principles is that they're applicable to so many aspects of life. Right. Whether you're working with children, trying to improve your own habits, or simply wanting to understand the forces that shape human behavior.
So as we wrap up our deep dive, I'd love to leave our listeners with a final thought.
Okay.
What behaviors in your life are being shaped and maintained by these principles? What can you do with this knowledge to create positive change?
Good question.
It's something to ponder as you go about your day.
And remember, the journey of understanding behavior is ongoing.
Right.
There's always more to learn, more to explore.
Yeah.
So stay curious, keep observing, keep experimenting, and keep those behavior-shaping skills sharp.
Thanks for joining us on this fascinating exploration.
It was fun.
Until next time, keep diving deep and keep those behaviors in check.